Welcome to this episode of Tech Threads. I'm your host, Max Watson, and today I talked with Jacob Draper, who's a senior product manager at Adobe. He works with their analytical and AI tools, and we talked about AI, analytics, and how that's changing customers' experiences. So tune in. Jacob, welcome to Tech Threads.
Awesome. Thank you. Happy to be here. Excited.
Yeah, this is going to be an awesome episode. We're going to talk about analytics and some AI, and I know that's a big topic for a lot of people as they kind of navigate this scene. But before we jump into it, could you kind of explain who you are for those who might not know you?
Yeah, I'm a product manager at Adobe working on analytics as the function. We have a couple products within that, which are Adobe Analytics and Customer Journey Analytics. And I work kind of on the our UI, which is our analysis workspace, which is a really cool, powerful analytics tool. And I work with media companies too. I kind of do a little bit of double duty in that regard.
Nice. Well, I mean, like, let's jump into it. We were kind of discussing before we even started this, just kind of like what you know about, data, AI, your experience at Adobe, kind of what you're doing currently with tracking AI and trying to figure out that. Let's just jump into what are the biggest trends that you've seen right now with AI when it comes to like product management and products?
Well, it's funny because we're all kind of doing similar things. It's well, all again, painting generalities, but it seems like in product, we're trying to figure out how we can utilize large language models and other AI functions to go into our products to be our products in some cases. And that's great. That's fine and dandy. But what you're doing is you're handing over a portion of your interaction with your customer, your brand, you're giving to what for most people is kind of a black box. And that's a little scary. And so
Mm.
you need to know that it's doing what you think it's doing. That's kind of one thing. And you also need to be able to tell if it's successful or not. And that also is like a wide range of things. What is success for us? What does that mean? So as we're with those kind of two things in mind, the way that we're approaching it, at least from my perspective, where we are an analytics tool to help you do both of those things is, measure success, however it might be, and understand what's happening, um, is we're kind of having to figure out on the fly how to collect that data. That's kind of a hard part. There's a lot that goes into actually understanding the events that are being generated by your model, how your customers interacting with it, how they feel about it, intent, what they're trying to do, sentiment, how they feel. Are they happy? Did they get what they wanted out of the conversation? That you got to collect that stuff, just period. There has to be data
Mhm.
for each of those bits. And then you have to get it in and make it understandable and useful. And then usually take it into wider context of your products generally. It can't just kind of sit within the chat box or whatever interaction field you have with it. There's a before and there's an after, and you kind of have to
Mhm.
understand how it fits within the context of your whole journey for your customer. Again, that is kind of what we do, but that's the way that we're thinking from a just a very specific level. How is my chatbot doing? But how is it working within my wider customer experience? And that's hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Even like when I was in college last year and we had like AI be the big topic of a lot of our research. And it is hard to like try to figure out exactly how people are like reacting to it and if they like it, if they don't like it, what the answers are, like how it's working. Sometimes no one knows. It just
No,
gives an answer and it's like great.
and sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. That's the other hard part. I think that, and
Yeah.
I was having this conversation earlier at lunch today because again, we're all big weird nerds, but the fact that like you kind of don't I think that we've all your users, us as users, I think we're giving a lot more like allowance for shenanigans. Where before I think that we were a little bit more hardcore, or at least I have felt this way. I felt like I was a lot more hardcore, and when and large language model said a shenanigan, a lie, something that made me
Hmm.
mad because I knew it wasn't true, I was like, "You're dead to me. It's over."
Hmm.
Now I feel like we're kind of used to it, and so we're kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, I am now verifying what you tell me, but I feel like we have a lot more allowance for it to be wrong, and there isn't. I feel like there's a little bit more returning. and feeling that it can get stuff wrong, but I still am going to keep trying with it. Where before, I don't know if that was necessarily the case. It wasn't for me, at least personally.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. I feel like with a lot of other tools as well, it's kind of like that. Oh, if it's not 100% correct all the time, like, well, I'm not going to bother with it. But I feel like AI, since it's so new and it's been hyped up and people are projecting that it's like this whole tool, which it could or
Yeah.
maybe not get to that point. So they're kind of being more lenient on it. I mean, with
Yeah.
yours, yeah.
Is it the hype? Is it the hype cycle that we're all bought in and we're just like, at some point it's going to get better, so we're okay? I don't know. It's
Yeah.
kind of funny.
Yeah. I don't know. That's always like a big question too. I listened, to a podcast last weekend. It was on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. He had these two AI. I can't remember the exact company that they're founding or what they're exactly doing, but they were talking exactly about that. Like, is it the hype? Some of them are optimistic. Some people are kind of more pessimistic, saying like, "Hey, we don't have enough data, or in order to make massive increment jumps, we need like a lot more data than we actually have." So, I mean, I don't know. With you and your AI, like, how are you measuring kind of the success of AI in your products? Is it more like based on the customer's experience or like accuracy, or how have you juggled that?
We are in nascent stages, but we actually, at our summit, we had what we called the Summit Concierge, which was a large language model trained on our summit data. And it was like, there you go, go, go interact. And it was a good test for us, for Adobe as a whole, and for our digital experience side of the business. That's what the summit covers, is like analytics and B2B stuff and journey optimization, whatever. It was a good, like relatively limited scope for a couple of ways. One was just to kind of see what people did with it. And it was generally successful. I would say we got more thumbs up than thumbs down, which was nice for us. Um, but that's kind of the way that we were thinking about it initially, and then the way that we wanted to expand it was the initial bit was just a small scope.
Mhm.
What are people trying to figure out? Are they happy with it? And like, is it going off the rails? Those were kind of the ways that we were trying to look at it. We got some. The qualitative is the response back, the thumbs up or the thumbs down. It
Mhm.
was more positive than negative, which again we were happy with. But it was on a small number of the overall conversations that we had.
Mhm.
So we were able to measure and pull out intent, what people were trying to figure out, which was really good.
Mhm.
Again, it was nice because it was limited. It was like there's not a ton of stuff that you're asking a chatbot for at a conference. It's
Mhm.
schedule stuff, it's stuff about speakers, it's stuff about sessions, and
Mhm.
maybe some other information there. So we were able to pull all of that stuff out. We were able to get some other kind of I'd say qualitative bits, because again, that's kind of what you're measuring when you're talking about conversation.
Mhm.
But the piece that we really, and we were able to get within the app kind of what happens. That's kind of the key, I think, for us overall is, did people have a good time and did we have a good outcome? Was there a conversion? Is kind
Mhm.
of the idea, at least for us, the way that we're thinking. In the summit experience that we created, the conversions were limited and small. It was, going to a page to get an info thing. It wasn't, there's not a ton that you can do there. But I think that those kind of pieces tying together are ensuring brand safety, company safety. Is it
Mhm.
staying within the bounds that it should be? And then is the customer doing kind of what we hope that they do afterward? Is there a positive outcome, a positive KPI of any kind? And tying those things together is massively important, I think, to try to figure out like success of your chatbot.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, kind of going off that, like you want to make sure the chatbot or whatever AI you put out there isn't,
Yeah.
saying crazy stuff or like promising crazy things. Like
Yeah.
some of the stories we've heard in the beginning where like people were getting cars and got it for $1 because the
It's
company said so through their chatbot and it's like legal now. With that and like in mind with like analytics and data, how much do you like trust AI in making analytical like conclusions, decisions,
oh,
or
yeah.
like where's the jump back and forth between like trusting it and knowing that it's also might be giving you, false data?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's why it seems like the way that we've transitioned, at least where our language models or anyone's language models are dealing with data, there's usually a citation or some sort of reference back to the data itself, because we know they are not super great at math. And that's kind of a tough thing, especially like there's another. within Adobe, we have like data insights agent that you can ask it questions and it can create and generate reporting for you. And it
Hmm.
actually works better than you would kind of think it would, which is
Hmm.
cool. It can make things that are a little bit tougher to pull within our tool pretty easy, but there is always the verification required, which means that like when what it seems like it's really good for is when an expert is using it, so the expert can very quickly
Hmm.
see, no, not right. I know that that's not right. I know that I needed different metrics or different dimensions, or when it thinks this and pulls up
Hmm.
this table for me, I know that that data is wrong. That's not what it is. And so that's kind of the
Right.
thing that it seems like, at least at this point, it is best for from an analysis stage, from an as a tool for an analyst within an analytics tool, is as
Right.
a quicker way to pull something, but you do need the expert eye because if you don't have it, it's very likely that you will be fooled. If not now, then
Mm.
at some point, and you can't make decisions that way.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, especially with, businesses who spend a lot of money and invest a lot of money in things. It'd be terrible if you invested so like millions of dollars into some assumption that you got from AI and then you find out that like the data's not adding up or like the variables were off
Yeah.
or just the math that it did was wrong. Um,
Yeah. And I don't think that anybody is necessarily doing that now, but it's
mhm,
all it that's kind of where it usually seems and has seemed, speaking of AI kind of on the wider context and even thinking about within the a chatbot experience or some other product for your customer, it seems that it is best used by people who know what the outputs are supposed to be and not
mhm,
necessarily by people who don't know what they're doing, because that's
right.
that's where you have problems. That's where you don't catch the lie, you don't catch the fudge, you don't catch the cheat that it did to get something that it thought you might like.
Right. What do you see like coming up for like in your own product team or for more like internal users? How is analytics and AI going to change things? Or what do you see coming down in the future that analytics and AI will impact that, PMs out there right now can start thinking about and maybe, testing and implementing?
Yeah. I think so kind of the first question in looking at um, how AI is going to be impacting, I'll talk about kind of the measurement side and what people kind
Hmm.
of I think is kind of coming down. More and more AI tools, large language models, whatever, are going into products, and people really need to understand the way that those things are working and the impact that they're
Hmm.
having. Because I think that we're going to be coming up as these companies kind of start moving out of just burning through venture money and start having to make more money and
Hmm.
actually do real accounting. I think that the customers of these language models are going to have to understand really well how much the
Hmm.
costs are impacting the revenues on the other side. I think that that's something that I haven't super
Right.
heard a lot of, but it's literally you're going to have to know a conversation cost me X, and I have to attribute Y revenue to this, and I have to show the difference. I have to take this kind of against that's now my COGS, and I really need to know my
Yeah.
output on the other side. And I think that that's going to start coming up a lot more. Right now, we're in free and easy mode. We're in, Uber launch mode when all the rides were
Hmm.
freaking cheap and we were getting addicted. That's what's happening
Yeah.
with all of these things. Very quickly, we're going to have to measure each of those tokens and make a determination of, are we getting the value on the other side? I think that that's new and coming. And the analytics tools, the data collection tools are going to have to be able to tell you that. And if they're not, you have to find a way to be able to figure that out.
Yeah. Do you
Um,
think the
yeah.
accuracy of AI models is going to affect that? Do you think that like if it stays the way it is and there's kind of this like lingering, like person chasing you of like, oh, it could be wrong. Do you think that's going to impact when like you actually have to start paying money for these models and paying money to get these results?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know. Probably like that's one that from the offerers of these large language models, your ChatGPTs, your Perplexities, your whomever. I have to imagine
Mhm.
that they're going to start when they start upping the prices to where they can actually make money. Those conversations are going to get a lot more difficult with
Mhm.
the sales team. They're
Right.
going to have to say, we need to prove and know that our brand is safe and that we can actually drive outcomes. And then also that we're measuring those outcomes and can prove it too. Because, we're going to do our year contract, our 2 year contract or whatever. We're going to come up for renewal. And we have to
Hmm.
know that the money we're putting in X is coming out in Y. And I think that they're going to have to start answering for that a lot more.
Yeah. How do you think, like for the on the customer side, how do you think analytics and these new analytical tools and AI is going to change what they see on their side? Is it just going to be kind of like chatbots, or do you think there's going to be more, underlying AI that's running in the background that maybe they don't see, or maybe they don't like feel that it's AI? It's more of like a natural thing.
I hope for more of that. And that's kind of been AI up to this point, or AIML, which is what we used to call it for us olds.
Right.
Is that, it was there. They were we were running models and there was machine learning and there was there was artificial intelligence going into recommendations and other things. I hope for more of that because the my biggest beef with some of the AI stuff I've seen is that it is very solution in search of a problem. And,
Mhm.
we PMs, we hate that. We need the
Right.
problem understood well, and then we solve for that specific problem and not the other way around. So I hope for more of the latter that through analytics and through understanding and driving real outcomes with your customers that are impactful, that we can be a little bit more creative about how AI interacts with them, whether it's large language models or some other form of interaction. Analytics are going to play a huge role in that because, again, we're having to tie to outcomes. We're having to think about, uh, you know, customer success, however that looks for our individual organizations. I'd love to see
Mhm.
more creativity that way.
Oh, for sure. And I just think that's like always one of those things, especially with AI, that's just, it's going to come. Hopefully it gets to where we want it to. Like we were talking about before, the classic hype cycle. There's so many products and AI also had got to that point and it might still be at the pinnacle of it. It might be coming down, but it might also be like riding it out and keep going. So that's just one of those things. But when it comes to PMs who are like building these tools, what do you think is the biggest mistake that product managers make when it comes to data and analytics in their own teams? Do you have any recommendations that maybe could help PMs kind of take their analytics game to the next level?
Yeah, that's a good question. Biggest mistake. I think that the biggest issue I have seen is usually a misunderstanding of what the data is actually saying, what is actually being collected and how. Depending on whatever tool you use, you really need to understand what the definition of each of your dimensions we would, your metrics, your the things that you are counting. You really need to know what that means because that's
Mm,
probably where I've seen the biggest mistakes, and that's kind of the saddest, easiest thing. It's the first thing. It's, oh, I see that we have X number of these events happening. Awesome, that is good. I want to do more of
mhm,
that. If you misunderstand what those events mean, period, or what the actual pathway is to getting those things, then you're super in trouble. So having confidence in that and real knowledge of the data is super, super important. And it's fundamental because it is, but you would be surprised how often that happens, where someone comes up with a report, look at this thing that I figured out. Actually, that, to quote the Princess Bride, I don't think that means what you think it means. That's that's I think
mhm.
is usually the biggest issue that I see.
Do you think PMs need to be more technical when it comes to that, or are there other ways that they can understand those variables and kind of that road? For example, like I'm a software
Yeah.
engineer right now, and a lot of people we work with, because we have clients that we're like engineering things for right now, and a lot of times they read something, it's the same kind of thing. We'll go like generate some report, have some like queries and some code that kind of make some cool stuff for them, and then they like see the title, and then yeah, we'll take it one direction. When in reality, if they knew kind of the underlyings of what it's actually grabbing, what tables it's grabbing, what it actually means, it's a whole different, vision that they're having. Do you think they need to be PMs need to be more technical, or are there other ways to kind of get that underlying insight without having the, the bare bone technical skills?
Yeah, I would call it data smart. I think that that literally is what it is, and it is helpful to be technical. It's helpful to like understand how data is generated and how data is formed and stored and then accessed afterward.
Hmm.
But even just relying on other people, I think the biggest thing is that they assume. that they might actually know. And if they were to check with engineering on the actual definitions or be able to have a reference, that's kind of, a really nice thing to have is like a solutions, an SDR solutions design requirement, definition requirement. I don't know. Basically, each of the fields is defined clearly. This is how we collect it. This is when the event fires. This is for how long it exists. Knowing just kind of the simple way that data works will help the PM ask the right questions. And it helps to be that way. It as long as you have someone around you that can speak to that and feel good about it is great. But the more data literate a PM can get is really, really helpful for their own understanding. And they don't even have to like you don't have to understand or know SQL to pull your own queries
Mhm.
or be able to, be super crazy with Tableau or even like Adobe Analytics like I work on. But it helps to be able to ask the question to make sure that you understand the base level thing before you go and make decisions off it or send a report up to, um, the CEO saying a thing and you'll be
Right.
completely off base.
How do you, I mean, just thinking about like Adobe Analytics that you work on, is there a balance between, giving your clients and customers like a very customizable and like very technical product versus kind of like where AI, and I'm sure this is kind of like a big battle right now, like AI, where it's just like, hey, anybody can just send a message and then it'll do stuff. Is there like a balance between that? And what have you seen from your users, like of what they kind of like?
Well, it's so funny, and I rub my face. One of the things we're thinking about and that I'm working on right now, in addition to kind of AI, and funnily enough, it ties all together in a way, but is the first time user experience. The cool thing
Mhm.
about my specific product, Adobe Analytics, Customer Journey Analytics, is it is super powerful, and it's just a drag and drop interface. When I say that,
Mhm.
that seems very simple, but because it's so powerful people have built whole careers on being amazing at Adobe Analytics and CJA. And it's a tough balance to strike because we hear both things. Man, Analysis Workspace is like the coolest, best analytics tool there is. Nothing can touch it. It is too hard. I don't get it. I don't
Mhm.
like it. It's a bad interface. Like we hear both sides of it. And really what our research and our work has told us is that it's a very simple customer segmentation thing that we need to serve both and we need to serve both better because everyone starts on this side of this is hard. And I didn't even have an Adobe Analytics background before I was hired on. I learned the tool and I really like using it. It didn't take me that
Mhm.
long. I didn't think it was that hard, but I do understand it can be for some people. We need to serve them better so that they can turn into this side, which is I know this backwards and front, up and down, and I can get
Mhm.
crazy powerful and literally pull whatever insight so fast and it works and it's awesome. The balance to strike is difficult, and really, we just need to serve both users and also walk them along the path. We don't serve this user as
Mhm.
good as I think that we should, the first time user or the novice user, which is funny because that's kind of what we have said that we want to do. We want everybody to get in there and be able to pull stuff. We want, product, we want marketing, we want engineering, anybody to be able to get in there, throw all your data in there. And it is a tough balance to strike.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, that's got to be so tough, especially where it's like almost, I'm sure it's like 50-50. You have all these new users coming in, you want to convert them to these like super
Yeah.
experts, but like it's hard. Do you like, what do you think people could do, or what are you guys doing to help them make that jump quicker?
We're doing so from the product side, which is always our key focus here, on
Mhm.
on tech threads is always product first, is we're we're
Mhm.
doing a lot of research on those for some users and we're gonna release stuff that's gonna make it easier. The funny kind of the first question that you asked was like how much is like just predefined and how much is bespoke or how much is,
Mhm.
it's basically we do have predefined things we just basically want to get people to insight faster with less. And then by playing in the insight faster with less, you can get yourself to
Mhm.
here. That's kind of the way that we foresee it working better. We have bits of this, but we want to release more. And then we do a lot outside. Our documentation is really good. We work really closely in our
Mhm.
product team with our tech writing team, and they're fantastic. And that I always feel good about pushing people over to the help links. But we're also doing a ton in other outside education and courses and things that you can look up and find and get certifications. We're expanding that all the time. Um,
Mhm.
but we want to make it just within the product a lot more seamless.
Right. And I feel like that's always the goal. It might be harder or easier said than done, especially where you have two like
Oh
very different user groups.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I mean, I know for like my personal experience, like I feel like just the when you see something that has a lot of buttons and a lot of different like configuration things, it just is kind of scary from like a first time
yeah,
perspective. But then once you kind of start using it like that perspective, like, oh, give them something easy, quick, like a quick win, and then they kind of feel more confident and like it. I think that's a really good, kind of
yeah.
way.
You totally put your finger kind of on the thing, which is that the we have it's a blank panel. It's you hop in and you just have a blank project and it's scary and it's hard. It's like legitimately tough to be like, what's my first thing that I need to pull up? And that's kind of the jump we're hoping to make for people is you've got something here. Now click around and you can actually start pulling a lot of good stuff with it. Circling it back to AI though, honestly, the
Mhm.
the data insights agent that we it's kind of limited release right now, but it's going to GA soon if it hasn't already. That's going to actually do a decent amount, I think, for that first time user experience because they will be able to ask a pretty good, easy question. What's the revenue from our orders for last month? Boom. Here's now a project that's up for you, and you can look at it and then you can start messing around. You can start messing around with filters. You can start pulling in different metrics that you want to see that build off of that. So that actually is going to do a lot for us, is that
Mhm.
AI kind of intermediate step.
And that's such a cool kind of perspective on it because a lot of people think of AI as just like chatbot. And so they're like, kind of like you said, they have a solution, there's no problem. And they're trying to just like
Mhm.
force it in, like a circle and a square box or something like that. But I think, the creative ways that people are going to find for AI and stuff like that, like onboarding or like getting them started. And then after that, they don't need the AI. They can like do it themselves because they know it.
Yeah.
As we're kind of wrapping up, do you have any last advice or anything that you think PMs in the UPG community would like find value in when it comes to either AI or just like building analytical products for their users?
Yeah, it's from I think that it's going to be fun to see what everybody in like UPG does with it, does with
Mhm.
AI, does with their data. The key always is building toward an outcome and making sure that you can measure that outcome and that outcome has value. Like if you're always
Mhm.
tying it back to that, you're going to be in a good spot. And just make sure basically that you can measure that outcome correctly and properly and that you're getting the right stuff. Because the creativity of product people, that's kind of my favorite thing is that, we're
Mhm.
it's a lot of people that are focused on solving problems and are going to do it in a creative way. And I love to see it. I just, let's make sure that we can prove it that we're doing it when we get stuff out the door.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great thing. And Jake, I just wanted to thank you again for hopping on. Like the insights you've shared, your expertise is like something that a lot of people want right now. So I know this episode hopefully should help a lot of people get a better understanding of, the landscape, especially from an expert like you who've done it, you're doing it, you're seeing success from it. And yeah, so thanks one more time for being on Tech
Yeah,
Threads tonight.
of course. Super happy to do it. And for anybody who's out, I'd love to talk. If there's a thing that you're thinking about of measuring success for your large language model product, I'd love to hear it. And I'd love to hear issues you're having with it too. Because we're trying to think about that measurement piece and it's
Mhm.
so new. Like we're really on the cutting edge of it. And so I'd love to hear anybody's feedback or stuff that they've seen in that regard.
Yeah, no, I'll throw it out there. I'll put it in the description in the LinkedIn post as well. And then yeah,
Sweet.
hopefully you can get some messages and get some ideas flowing. But yeah,
Awesome.
thanks for hopping on.
Yeah. Thanks, Max.